Welcome to the Flightcast, a place where opinions aren't right or wrong, and where we can agree or disagree about movies, TV, and other assorted media because it's all subjective. My name is Ray. Thank you so much for joining me. How's everybody doing? It's been a minute. That's, I realize, a loaded question to ask people, especially if you live where I live in the grand and glorious United States of America, if you will. Maybe not so grand and glorious these days. Hey, before diving into anything heavy, just want to say it is good to talk to all of you again, and let's get a few particulars out of the way, because a number of things have changed in the last few weeks or so, if you will, since the last time I recorded an episode, which wasn't an episode of the main show like I'm doing now. The last episode I recorded was my review of Venom: The Last Dance, which was back at the end of October, which wasn't that long ago, but still long enough, if you will. But, like I said, a decent amount has happened in the last 2 weeks, which I'm sure most of you are aware of. But here, first things first, let's get some particulars out of the way. Obviously, reports of my demise, if you will, have been greatly exaggerated, and my show and my blog is still available at theflightcast.com. That is still up. That is not going anywhere. That is still up and operational, if you will. But obviously, my social media presence has changed just a bit, if you will. A number of you have detected that I am no longer on Threads, and that is true. And for a time, I was no longer on either Instagram or Facebook. While I'm still not on Instagram, Threads and Instagram I have ditched. For reasons that I will get into very briefly here in a little bit. But the Facebook page does still exist. I went ahead and reactivated that because I do want that to still remain a part of that ecosystem, if you will. There's a good amount of followers, a good amount of people that like that page. So I still want that to remain up. So the Flightcast Facebook page is still up. But now, if you wish to contact me or pontificate with me, or at this point send direct messages to me on a social media platform, you're going to have to find me on BLUESKY. Yes, that is where I have migrated to. And yes, I have migrated there for reasons that you may already be aware of, many millions of others migrating there as well. Although, to be fair, I left Twitter over a year ago, long before many people in the last couple of weeks started to. The thing is, I decided to also leave Threads and Instagram as well for a lot of the similar reasons. And now I'm on BLUESKY at Flightcast, so you can definitely find me there. And it's been cool over there so far. I've actually been able to reconnect with a number of mutuals that I had that I lost on Twitter, Brent being one of them, believe it or not. Brent, my former podcast co-host over at Squadcast Media, Fans Without Borders, and DCTV Squadcast we used to host back in the day. He remained on Twitter /X, whatever. It's still Twitter. Who's really calling it X? Come on, let's be honest here. But he was still there. He didn't come over to Threads. At least I don't remember if he came over to Threads or not. I don't think he did. Never really interacted with him. But he's on BLUESKY. Most certainly is. And also so is Tim and Jordan, a couple of my other podcast brothers over from Squadcast Media as well. And a number of others, and a few of you as well, have now jumped onto BLUESKY. So we can start up the conversation there. We can get some things going there. And it's been 2 weeks, so it's really time to talk about some more geeky shit, to be honest with you. I really am feeling up to that, to be honest with you. It's taken me a bit. But yeah, so that's where I am now, social media-wise. So, recap. Website's still up with all of my shows and also my blog posts. The Flightcast Facebook page is still up, and I am now on BLUESKY as far as social media networks are concerned, to be honest with you. So that's where you can find me for regular communication. And also stay tuned because, to be honest with you, I'm still toying around with that whole Discord idea that I mentioned not too long ago. And I think that may actually end up happening in the not too distant future. So just stay tuned for that one. All right. All the disclaimers out of the way. All right. Let's get down to some business here. Now, if you are a regular listener of my show, or at least a semi-regular listener, you know that I am not a political podcaster by any stretch of the imagination. I don't spend entire episodes talking about politics or anything like that. I talk about movies, TV, and other assorted media, that's for sure. But I've also made it abundantly clear that I am not afraid to talk politics. You've heard me use phrases like nerd MAGA and nerd QAnon before to describe some of the more toxic and more destructive members of our respective fan bases. People like Nerdrotic and Data Racer and Star Wars Theory, the people that make the angry YouTube videos about the MCU, and the people that decide to make a huge deal about Ki-Adi-Mundi's birthday and the Acolyte and use it as a dog whistle to complain about all the diversity. Too many women, too many brown people, too many LGBTQ plus related people in a Star Wars show. We don't need that type of wokeness, right? Those people exist in our fan base, in all of our fan bases, to be honest with you. And we know this. And I've made no bones about talking about them on this show. So, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to give you a brief few minutes, if you will, to talk about what happened 2 weeks ago. And I will relate it to our respective fandoms. I'll relate it to nerddom. Don't worry. It's not just going to be a giant political rant. It's not going to be long. Trust me. There's a lot that I could say, and I'm sure there are a number of discussions that I could have, but I'm not going to have them on this show. I'm just going to briefly take some time here, get my thoughts out with this, and then we can move forward, because let's not act like this isn't going to come up again. It most certainly will. All right. Here's the deal. Obviously, 2 weeks ago, not a good result. Not. Just, and if you're somebody that listens to this show, you probably agree with me about how not a good result it was. If you're somebody that actually disagrees with that and you're pleased with the result, stop listening to this show. And, in fact, lose my website, lose all of my social contact information, and never listen to this show again. And don't attempt to contact me again. That is how strongly I feel about it. If you were somebody that 2 weeks ago voted for the result that we have now in the United States of America, get the hell off my show. Go away. I do not wish for you to listen to any of my dulcet tones whatsoever. You're not welcome here. You simply are not. If you're someone that voted for that result and you're happy with it, if you're not experiencing any buyer's remorse, if you willingly voted against the interests of my group that I belong to, my ethnicity, if you voted against the interest of other minorities in this country, other groups, against women, etc., yeah, you're not welcome here. You are part of the Data Racer, Nerdrotic, Star Wars Theory crowd, and you can go to hell. You can absolutely go to hell. That's just me being completely honest. I don't think any of you are listening to that show. I don't think listening to this show, rather. I don't think any people that were happy with the result of what happened 2 weeks ago in the United States, I don't think any of you are listening to this show. So I'm just getting that out of the way. That's strongly how I feel about it. I've made no bones about that. On Blue Sky, on social media in general, that is how I feel. And quite honestly, we're in for some tough times. Very, very, very tough times. And I said I would relate this to all of our nerdy pursuits. And I most certainly can, because here's the deal, ladies and gentlemen. Remember all the stuff that I talked about before with respect to consolidation, and remember all the concerns that we had about antitrust and monopolies and studios swallowing up other studios? Well, guess what? All that is back on the table again. If you recall, the last time that the current individual who was recently elected president of the United States was in charge, that's when the AT&T Time Warner merger happened. It's also when Disney bought Fox. Remember that? Those two big, huge mergers. First of all, AT&T Time Warner, which I said way back in the Fans Without Borders days, that was the one that basically made vertical integration legal and said, hey, internet service providers can own content creators. That's precisely what happened. Now, regardless of what became of that deal, AT&T spinning Warner Media off to Discovery, doesn't matter. Point is, that was made legal, and everything seemed A-okay in that regard. And that paved the way for Disney to buy Fox. So instead of the big 6 studios, we became the big 5. And I made theories, right? I told you some years ago that my theory was that Apple at some point was going to buy Disney, right? And the thing is, that idea kind of stalled because the current regime, if you will, the current presidential regime was all about antitrust and, going after monopolies and stymieing that, right? The Department of Justice and everything. They were stonewalling that. They were stonewalling that, if you will. And they were trying to slow that down. They were taking aim against corporations trying to consolidate and monopolize, if you will. But now that's all about to go out the window. All that resistance is going to go completely out the window, and now it's back to Wild Wild West, and we're going to see these big CEOs and these corporations start trying to merge again. And why? Because they're all still hurting from the effects of the pandemic and from the effects of the strikes last year, and many of them are still hemorrhaging and bleeding money. So you know what they're going to do? they're probably going to seek mergers again so that they can, get a nice fat buyout and go retire on their yachts, and then leave somebody else to deal with the headache as they merge with each other and put thousands more people out of jobs, just like what happened with AT&T Time Warner, just like what happened with Disney buying Fox, and also what's happening now. You've got other companies buying others. The Skydance Paramount merger was completed not too long ago, so there's that to consider as well. The point of the matter is that this is why things like elections matter in the United States, because now we're back to it being potential Wild Wild West, and we're potentially seeing a lot more mergers, right? And this can affect all of our properties. I said Apple could potentially buy Disney at some point. Well, here's even more of a nightmare for you. What if Amazon bought them? Because that's absolutely possible. The idea of Amazon buying Disney, the idea of Amazon being in charge of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, Amazon being in charge of Lucasfilm. How about that? Would you like a scenario where your Amazon Prime subscription is merged with Disney Plus? Maybe you would. Maybe you would appreciate that. Would you like to see that Amazon logo over all your Star Wars content, over all your Marvel content? Would you like to see that? Would you like to see Jeff Bezos in charge of whatever Kevin Feige does or whatever Kathleen Kennedy does? Or wait a minute, maybe Jeff Bezos is going to be the next one, the next savior, the next white man savior, to rescue Star Wars from the evil clutches of Kathleen Kennedy, that woman. How dare she destroy the franchise? You know who I'm quoting here. The same morons that put up money so that they could buy out, buy shares of Lucasfilms just so they get on that conference call and ask when Kathleen Kennedy was going to be fired. The same ones that have been telling us for the last number of years that any day now Jon Favreau and Dave Filoni are going to come save this franchise from her evil clutches and do everything that they can to retcon the sequel trilogy because it absolutely bastardizes the franchise that we knew and love and grew up with as children, right? All of that is now in play. not that particular scenario, if you will, or maybe so, because truthfully, with respect to deregulation, which is what this new/old presidential regime is interested in, yeah, all of that's on the table now, guys. Seriously, the idea of Apple or Amazon buying Disney is absolutely on the table. I remembered a couple of years ago we talked about the idea of David Zaslav just shining up Warner Brothers Discovery and polishing it up as best as possible so that he could sell to Comcast Universal. Oh, that's most certainly on the table now. Are you kidding me? All of that is absolutely wide open. And if you don't believe me, a day or two after the election, The Hollywood Reporter posted an article about how some of the smaller CEOs, some of the smaller companies like Sinclair Broadcast Group and Nexstar are absolutely licking their chops because they can go back to buying out all the small news stations and news companies across the country like they were doing, again, before things got slowed down with all the antitrust stuff from the Biden regime. The previous regime, which is coming back into power in January, was all about deregulation and was encouraging all of the monopolization and all of the antitrust stuff, right? So it's like all of that is coming back into play. And if you think that these bigwigs, if you think that Bob Iger, if you think that David Zaslav, if you think that these studio heads aren't thinking about that, then you've got another think coming. Because this is precisely what they want to try and hedge their bets and stop the hemorrhaging of money, right? That they're all still in the red, right? They're all still trying to reap some profits, right? It's not like Deadpool and Wolverine was just the absolute massive savior for Disney. No, they've still got issues. They've still got financial issues. All of these studios still have financial issues, again, from the pandemic and also from the strikes that they caused, that they incited last year. And this is now, this new presidential regime coming into power once again in January, is their get-out-of-jail-free card, and that is how it is going to affect us. Because imagine now we got to deal with more restructuring. We got to deal with potentially new directions, if you will. And these are hypotheticals, mind you, but we can't rule these out with respect to the new old regime coming back into play. Yes, I heard what Denzel Washington said about a week or so ago when he told reporters, I think he was doing press junkets for Gladiator 2, which is out this week. Yes, he did tell them that Ryan Coogler is writing a part for him in Black Panther 3. Do I believe him? Yes, I do. Most certainly I do. Denzel's at that point where, he's old enough and he's got a couple of Oscars under his belt. He doesn't give a shit. He does not care. Kevin Feige can't really say that a whole lot to him in that regard. So gag orders and all that doesn't matter. Yes, I 100% believe that Ryan Coogler is writing something for him for Black Panther 3. And that would be great. That'd be fantastic. I can't wait to see that if it indeed happens. But therein lies my concern. Will Black Panther 3 actually happen now? I don't know. I'm not sure. Because you remember Nelson Peltz? Remember that name? Remember the guy who's like buddy-buddy with like Perlmutter and was trying to muscle his way under the Marvel board, and they didn't allow him on, but he's still buddy-buddy with Perlmutter, and he knows Iger, and he's in that circle of one percenters, right? He was the guy that was quoted as saying he didn't see a need for female-led superhero movies. He didn't see a need for black superhero movies. He didn't see a need for it, right? There wasn't a point. He wants everything to go back to white guys named Chris in the lead, right? Marvel's had plenty of those over the last 20 years, right? And so this is the same guy who's also buddy-buddy with the new old regime that's coming into power. And so what if we see a fundamental shift in these movies going forward, right? What if perhaps we don't see follow-up for the Marvels, right? The Marvels didn't do well financially. I understand that. But a lot of us have talked about how much we enjoyed Iman Vellani and how great she's been as Ms. Marvel, not only in her own show, but also in that film. The whole thing with the Young Avengers, and I know Ironheart is still happening, but let's say that outside of projects that are already greenlit and already headed, for us to consume, if you will, right? All the stuff that was in that Marvel sizzle reel that I didn't get a chance to talk about yet either. Let's say, apart from that, all other new diversified projects are considered DEI, because that's an evil phrase now, and they don't get greenlit anymore. What if Peltz gets into Iger's ear and says, we don't need Black Panther 3. We don't need to do that anymore. Let's instead focus on, bringing Steve Rogers back or doing something else in that regard, right? That's not outside the realm of possibility, guys. It just isn't. I'm not trying to be, Mr. Doomsday or, Negative Nancy or anything like that. I'm just being real. This is what happens when regimes change, with respect to, the president and their connection to the corporatism that is present in the United States. Like, this is how things can evolve, right? And it affects us. It absolutely does. We've seen what's happened. Those of us that have gone through, all the different changes of leadership at Warner Brothers and how it's affected DC, right? On the flip side, we've seen the stability with Marvel, but even they've come under fire when, Feige had to butt heads with Perlmutter because of certain things with respect to diversity and connecting the TV shows back in the Netflix days and all of that, right? And you hear that sentiment, right? And remember, all the Nerd QAnon and Nerd MAGA have been screaming about too many women leading the MCU for the last couple of years. That's what most of their hate videos are centered around, right? And they hate it with Star Wars too. If they're not complaining about the Acolyte, then they're complaining about Rey being a Mary Sue and how evil and horrible the sequel trilogy is because it devalues white men for whatever reason, right? All of that is, I'm not making this up. This is all on YouTube. This is all there, and it's all related. It's all relative. That's why I'm bringing this up. That's why I'm talking about it. Because we could be in for some wholesale changes with respect to the medium going forward, and I don't want that to be the case. If James Gunn has any plans, and I know he does, if he has any plans whatsoever for female-led projects or minority-led projects within the DCU, I don't want those to get squashed. I'm really glad Supergirl's already been greenlit because they can't do anything with that. And again, I'm not telling you definitively that David Zaslav is just all of a sudden going to tell him, okay, don't do this, don't do that. We don't need any more diversity. What I am saying is that those CEOs are now more emboldened and more empowered to do that if they wish to change things. Now, I don't think fiscally it makes sense, especially in the case of Black Panther, because to be very honest with you, objectively speaking, from a data point, unless you count major team-ups, right? And when I say major team-ups, I'm talking Spider-Man No Way Home and Deadpool and Wolverine. Black Panther Wakanda Forever is the last really big financial hit for the Marvel Cinematic Universe. I know some people are going to say Guardians Volume 3, but remember, as much money as that did make for Marvel last year, it still didn't hit the amount of money that Guardians Volume 2 did. Yes, I know, it was only a few million short or whatever. It's not that big of a margin. But my point is, Black Panther movies have made money. The first one made over $1 billion. The second one made well over $800 million. So it makes sense for them to make a third one. fiscally speaking. And perhaps that will be all that Kevin Feige needs to say, all right, Ryan Coogler can continue. And, whatever plans he has for Denzel Washington will see the light of day. But unfortunately now, because of what happened 2 weeks ago, there's reason for pause. There's reason for concern. And you might think that's silly. You might think that's ridiculous. You might think there's no way in hell that that's going to happen. But you know what? A whole lot of us didn't think that what happened 2 weeks ago was possible or was going to happen in that regard. And many of us are still very much recovering from that. And a lot of us are not going to be able to recover from exactly what happened 2 weeks ago in this country. So you can't take it off the table, unfortunately. And, I've been very vocal about it because, again, I'm not afraid of talking about this shit. I really am not. I'm not trying to make everything political, but when I think it affects what it is that we talk about, when it affects the movies, TV, and other assorted media that we consume, I think it's relevant. It's most certainly relevant. Like I said, I've brought it up before within the nerd realms. I'm bringing it up here now to connect the same way. It's something to put on your radar. It's something to be mindful of. It's not something to be scared of or to be worried about, but it's something that could rear its head now that these things are happening. These things are being put into motion, and that's just the tip of the iceberg. Who knows what else could flip and happen with respect to all of this. Hollywood could be in for some drastic changes along with the rest of the country, to be honest with you, as a result of what has happened in the past 2 weeks. So I'm just throwing that out there, and I didn't want to ignore it. I didn't want to dismiss it. It is most certainly a big reason why I hadn't recorded anything in the last 2 weeks. I just want to take a little bit of time and talk about it here and just get my thoughts out on it and let you know, yeah, it's something to be concerned about. It's something to put on your radar. How bad it could be or not, we will find out, most certainly. But don't say you weren't warned, or don't say that there was no consideration taken for it if, in fact, these types of changes do occur going forward. I hope they don't. I sincerely hope they do not. I hope that Kevin Feige and James Gunn are both left the hell alone by Bob Iger and David Zaslav and all of their 1%er friends. I really hope that. I hope that whatever plans that Marvel Studios and DC Studios have going forward over the next 4 years and beyond are completely unabated. I hope that nothing touches them. I hope that none of this, the ridiculousness that we're seeing here, affects them. I really hope that is the case. I'm praying, truthfully, that is the case, that they, are left to their own devices and they're allowed to do their own things, right? Gunn has been talking about the freedom and the autonomy that he's been having lately with respect to his creative decisions at DC Studios. I hope that he and Feige are continued to be afforded that same privilege. But just in case they aren't, this is why elections are important. That's all I'll say about it. That's all I'm going to say. And I'm going to move forward from that point on. Most of you, if not all of you, already know how I feel about it. And I know an overwhelming number of you agree with me on it. So let's move forward as best as we possibly can. All right, so obviously there were a decent amount of things over the last couple of weeks that were revealed, shown, if you will, that, required a little bit of catch-up here. So this is going to be a bit of a catch-all session here to talk about for the rest of this episode. Let's see. What's the first thing that comes to mind? Okay, how about this? The Marvel sizzle reel, right? That was the big thing that came out. Looks awesome. Quite frankly, I'll be honest with you. When I saw the clip for Daredevil Born Again, initially, to me, when I first saw it, I'm like, is this fan-made? Is this real? And then after a while, it became clear, oh no, this is quite real. Yes, very real. No, it's cool. Seriously, it just looks like, Charlie Cox and Vincent D'Onofrio are picking up where they left off. I like that the dad from Ms. Marvel is in it. I don't know why. He's got to be playing the same character, right? Maybe for some reason, Kamala's father needs Matt as a particular, a lawyer for whatever reason out of Hell's Kitchen. It's not like Jersey City is that far away from Hell's Kitchen, right? So that's cool. And what I like about that is, obviously Daredevil is a very different vibe than Ms. Marvel. So it's just going to be another opportunity to, blend, or not necessarily blend, but show different archetypes and different styles and different tones that can exist within the MCU. I'm all for it. It's cool. Look, I enjoyed all 3 seasons of Daredevil on Netflix. Of course, I'm probably going to enjoy Born Again. No doubt about that. So that looked cool. Let's see. What else was on that sizzle reel, if I remember correctly? Ironheart. Look, that looks cool. I'm looking forward to that one. Seriously, the suit looks nice. The suit actually looks really nice. It looks, straight out of what what we've been used to seeing with respect to Stark Tech, and now it's in Riri's hands. So yeah, definitely looking forward to that. The animated stuff, like I still haven't seen like the previous seasons of What If. So like between that and Marvel Zombies and also Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, yeah, I have some animated stuff to get caught up on. Yes, that's all on the list for sure. No doubt about it. This Wonder Man thing with Yahya Abdul-Mateen II, that looks interesting. I mean, he's a great actor. I really liked him as Black Manta in the Aquaman movies, and he was also great in the Watchmen show on HBO. So yeah, he's going to knock that out of the park, whatever it is. Of course, that's going to be good. With respect to, they were talking about, who was it? They were talking about with respect to the, Chris, there's a rumor. Brent sent me, he told me that there was a rumor that Cress Williams may get cast in the Eyes of Wakanda animated series. Yes. That's one that, hopefully that gets proven true. I know I don't really talk about rumors, but this is just a catch-up thing at the moment. Yeah. Of course he would fit into that. Why the hell not? Put Black Lightning in that. Yes, definitely. He's an actor. He doesn't care about crossing over in that regard for sure. Yeah. So that looks cool. I mean, listen, between that and then, we got new trailers. Got a new trailer for Thunderbolts. And we also got a brand new trailer that shows full-on Red Hulk, in Captain America Brave New World, right? So, like, it all looks good. Like, seriously, I don't see anything from Marvel that's like, it gives me pause. No, all looks good. All looks promising. But again, I have a wider strike zone when it comes to Marvel in that regard, right? Phase 4 and 5 have not disappointed me like they've disappointed so many others, right? I enjoyed those films. Very much so I enjoyed those films in a number of ways, right? I'm not grasping for something to fill the void left by the Infinity Saga at this point, like I guess so many others are. I don't see Marvel as a failure. I mean, clearly there is some course correction that they need to make, because right now they only seem to be able to make bank on their big, huge team-ups, right? Whether it is Spider-Man No Way Home a couple of years ago, whether it is Deadpool and Wolverine earlier this year, or even Guardians Volume 3, which was the end of a trilogy. Like, all their other standalone stuff has not performed nearly as strongly as they would have liked, at least in the last year, right? Like, since Wakanda Forever. And they've got plans, obviously, we know about their future plans for, the Avengers and the whole thing with Robert Downey Jr. as Dr. Doom and all that. And we know that Fantastic Four is coming up, as well, later, coming up in 2025 in July, right? They've got some stuff on the docket. It's all intriguing. I will say this, even though I did finish The Penguin, and of course you can go over to squadcastmedia.com and listen to me and Scott finish our thoughts. We did break down all 8 episodes of The Penguin over on HBO. We give our full thoughts on that. Even though I did finish that show, and that phenomenal show, I still have yet to get caught up or watch really even Agatha All Along. And it just gets added to the list as far as my Marvel catch-up, because I need to watch that. I need to watch She-Hulk. I need to watch Echo. I did not watch Echo. And I feel like there's one other Marvel show, live action, one other Marvel show that I am not caught up on. None of the ones that have been released on DVD, or not DVD, good grief, Blu-ray yet. Because Loki Season 2. That's right. I haven't watched Loki Season 2. Yeah, I'm behind. Surprise, I'm behind with respect to all this content. But right now, next thing I got to get caught up on is Superman and Lois, because we got to talk about that on DC TV Squadcast now that we are done with the Penguin in that regard. But that's everything that I can think of as far as Marvel catch-up. If I forgot something, just go ahead and let me know, and we can talk about it later on Flight Chat. As for the DC side of things, right, going over to the DCU, if you will, I am patiently awaiting the Superman trailer, seriously. And no, I'm not bummed out by the fact that James Gunn is saying that he will not be at CCXP. I realize that there were a number of people, Anthony, Brooklyn Batman included, that wanted to see him there. But at the end of the day, it's more important that he's finishing Superman and also Peacemaker Season 2 than it is for him to actually physically appear at CCXP. Because guess what he can do? He can still drop the trailer for Superman, the first teaser trailer for Superman at CCXP remotely. He can do a video, release that remotely, like all of that. He doesn't need to be there in person with respect to that. He's a busy man. He's a very busy man. He has a lot to do. He's got a lot going on right now. He's trying to launch and kick off a brand new DC universe for our consumption. And to that end, just a couple of the other things that I've heard that have been bandied around here. I hear that apparently, according to Collider.com interview that he did or whatnot, he said that multiple R-rated projects are being developed at DC Studios. I guess the quote is, whatever rating is worthy of the story, that's what we're going to do. That's what a creator's supposed to say, right? You know, the idea of cutting things off and saying, well, it must be PG-13, it must be this, it must be that. No, one of the things that I think James Gunn does need to do that will differentiate himself from Kevin Feige and differentiate the DCU from the MCU is he does have to, be a little bit bolder and take some more risks in that regard, right? He can't make MCU 2.0. I've said this from the beginning, and I will continue to reiterate that the DCU must separate itself. It must be different. Now, that doesn't mean that Superman is going to be rated R. That doesn't mean that Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow, is going to be rated R. It doesn't even mean Batman the Brave and the Bold is going to be rated R. It does mean that Lanterns might be a bit more mature, and I would kind of expect so if it's going to be an HBO original, especially given what we know of it, setting-wise, and with the casting so far, and the fact that it's going to be an HBO original and not just a Max original, right? And other projects that they're talking about, other movies, okay, whatever serves the story, whatever serves the vision, right? We know Creature Commandos is going to be a more adult cartoon, and we're only weeks away from the debut of that on Max, right? That's coming. They're doing presses. They're doing pressers for that now. I saw a thing where what's his name, Brandon Davis, I think it was, from comicbook.com, was talking to James Gunn and Frank Grillo, and what's his name? Why can I not remember his name from Peacemaker? Steve Agee, who plays John Economos. They were all part of a press tour, and there was another actress. Oh, who is the actress? Man, my memory is failing me because I'm not really up on this cast, to be honest with you. I'm still waiting for the show to come out. Maria Bakalova, that's right. Yeah, they were all doing this review, this, open review with Brandon Davis, and yeah, they were talking about the show, right? We're coming up on that. The DCU is mere weeks away from launching in this regard, right? And so different tones and different styles, right? We're going to be looking for what differentiates this from the MCU and what makes the DCU its own singular vision, if you will. And diversity of tone and diversity of story and setting, I think absolutely should be a massive part of that. So yeah, I have no issues with him saying, obviously, that multiple R-rated projects, and they'll be R, in earnest, they'll be R, but we'll see, how they're rated in that regard, to be honest with you. But, it's interesting. I bring up that interview with Brandon Davis, which was on the Phase Hero show that he does. And James Gunn is also on Blue Sky. At least I'm choosing to believe that this is him on Blue Sky because he's got over 167,000 followers. I have a number of mutuals, a number of other bigger accounts that follow him. I'm pretty sure this is him, to be honest with you. But he posted this on Blue Sky, and he got a response to it from Gato del Sol, who said, "The same Creature Commandos who killed Weird War Tales. I know you're good at what you do, but is this really necessary?" And as a result of this, James Gunn responded to this on Blue Sky. And he quoted this, and he said, "If there has been one consistent element in my life, it is this. In 1999, folks were outraged the Trauma guy was doing Scooby-Doo. I was for the first time bombarded with online vitriol. Later, over 200,000 people signed a petition protesting Zack Snyder, and I, making Dawn of the Dead. When Guardians of the Galaxy was announced, we were endlessly told it was wrong to focus on them over more well-known heroes, and it would be Marvel's first bomb. Next, I was told over and over no one wanted to see a TV show about Peacemaker. Even recently, we got thousands of mentions," he says, saying no one wanted a series about the Penguin. So I certainly have learned to ignore the chant, "Is this necessary?" or "No one wants to see this," and instead focus on the passion in and the merits of each project itself. Finis. Well said. Absolutely well said. And that is what you're supposed to say as the creative head of something like DC Studios. That's what I want the creative head of my DC Studios to say. Most certainly. I want that approach. Because here's the thing. Not everybody in our fandom is going to appreciate James Gunn's take on the DCU. They're not. There are plenty of people already have their arrows and slings aimed at it and don't care for what James Gunn has done to this point in his career, whether it's Guardians, whether it's the Suicide Squad, whether it's Trauma or Slither or any of the other stuff that he did, right? Like, and maybe they didn't even necessarily care for his partnering up with Zack Snyder and Dawn of the Dead. They probably feel like Zack Snyder made that movie great in spite of James Gunn. I'm sure there are people out there that feel that way. It's all subjective. They can feel that way if they want. But that response right there to, is this really necessary? That is what I want my creative head to say. That is what I want the creative head of one of my favorite studios to say. What I hope to be one of my favorite studios. Because I obviously am a DC fan first. I've said that, made no bones about it. I prefer DC over Marvel, even though I enjoy both, right? But I want that creativity to stay there, right? I keep the bureaucracy at bay as long as possible. Yes, at some point it's probably going to seep in, which is why Peter Safran is there. He's the bureaucratic part of the DC Studios leadership, if you will, right? But as far as the creative head, exactly what James Gunn just said. Learn to ignore the chant, is this necessary, or no one wants to see this, and instead focus on the passion in and the merits of each project itself. Bingo. Absolutely outstanding answer. Again, really hope this is actually James Gunn. Pretty sure it is with respect to that, but we'll see. You know, and it's funny, C. Robert Cargill, which is another person, I wasn't necessarily like a mutual with him, but I saw him. That's an account that I used to see over on Twitter that I didn't see over on Threads. He quoted James Gunn and he said, I came up with a bunch of folks who consistently bet against James Gunn, and the thing I learned most from that was, don't effing bet against James Gunn. He put that last part in all caps. I would agree with that. James Gunn has had some massive hits. Seriously, there's a reason that it is most likely a smart business decision to put him in charge as the creative head of DC Studios, right? Because he made Guardians of the Galaxy a viable wing of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Look at how much money those movies made, right? The popularity and the connection with the audience that they made, right? You know, say what you will about the Suicide Squad. A number of people and a number of critics did enjoy that film. And yeah, Peacemaker was a smash hit on Max. It was. Plenty of people enjoyed that show. That's why it's getting a second season. It's not just because, oh, nepotism, he's in charge, he's keeping it together. And by the way, I've also seen the stuff where he talks about how it's going to fit in season 2 and what they're going to retcon, what they're going to deal with in terms of what was in season 1 that no longer applies. Whatever he decides, I'm good with. I don't care. We're moving forward. We know what's not going to be there. We know what's probably going to be there. It is what it is. Moving forward with respect to that. But I eagerly anticipate, and it's still cautious optimism because I don't know that I'm going to enjoy everything that James Gunn does, but I'm willing to let him be the open-minded creative with respect to it. I've said that from the beginning. I've not wavered from that position. And I've seen nothing and heard nothing from any of these interviews that lead me to believe that my mind is going to be changed on that. Proceed, James Gunn. Eagerly await what you give us with respect to Superman, with respect to Creature Commandos, with respect to Supergirl, and the rest of the DCU proper going forward. Absolutely looking forward to that. And yeah, that trailer is going to be coming pretty soon. No doubt about it. We're not that far away. He'll probably drop it at CCXP. I would be absolutely stunned if he didn't. Send it with his representatives there, and yeah, let's get the ball rolling. Let's keep it going. So with that in mind, I think that'll do it for this first episode back after a little bit of a break, if you will, for the Flightcast. If there's anything that's happened in the last couple of weeks that I have missed that you want to hear my thoughts on or want to talk about and have some opinions on, absolutely send that my way. Those of you that have listened to the show on the regular, you know where to find me now on BLUESKY at Flightcast. What's the actual link here? I know BLUESKY does it a little bit differently. Flightcast.bsky.social at flightcast.bsky.social is where you can find me on BLUESKY. It shouldn't be difficult to find. Anthony and Phil and a number of others have found me at this point. If you're not on BLUESKY yet, please join, because so far BLUESKY is basically Twitter before Elon Musk ruined it, truthfully, if I'm being 100% honest with you. on that one. So yeah, come join the fun. Direct messages. It's old school Twitter before all the ridiculously political bullshit and the Nazi stuff happened, to be honest with you. So just being 100% on that one. But yeah, you know where to find me on Blue Sky. Like I said, the Flightcast Facebook page is still active, so you can send stuff there. And of course, as always, you can email me at ray@theflightcast.com if you want to rap about some stuff. I know I've got some old Flight Chat emails as well to get through, a couple of watch updates from Alex De Silva and a number of others. We will get to that at some point. I may end up seeing Gladiator 2 this weekend. I'm still not 100% on that. Maybe seeing a review on that coming forward. I don't know. And of course, for those of you that are still members of the Flightcast Patreon, thank you very much for your esteemed patience with that. I've got a couple of ideas. You know what? I'm not even going to make any empty promises. Just stay tuned, and hopefully some new content is coming at patreon.com/theflightcast for any of you that are still subscribed there. Thank you so much for your support on that one. But for now, I will say take care, stay safe out there, and I will see you all next time. Take it easy.